my guest is Ron Pereira. Ron, thank you so much for allowing me to come to the Gemba.
Yeah, literally to the Gemba.
To the Gemba. Ron is the co-founder of the Gemba Academy here in Keller, Texas. He has over 25 years of experience in operations, engineering, supply chain, and CI or Lean Six Sigma. He's also trained and mentored thousands of individuals across the Lean Six Sigma methodologies. So, Ron, tell us a little bit about your continuous improvement journey. For people that have never heard of continuous improvement before, how would you explain that?
Yeah, so finding a better way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and I think we may talk about it later on, but one of the earliest things that I did, we make videos here at Gemba Academy to train people about this thing called Lean and Six Sigma, which, as you said, is sort of continuous improvement. But I made this video with my kids emptying the dishwasher, you know, and this video is like, it's super old and it's not very good quality compared to what we make now, but I don't have the heart to redo it because my little girls are in it. Now the oldest girl in that video, when she was real little, she's 21, just got married.
Oh, wow.
Last week or a few weeks ago. So, but it's one of those deals where, hey, before Lean, it took this long to empty the dishwasher. And then we did some Lean activities like move the silverware tray closer to the dishwasher and load the silverware more strategically so it's easier to unload. And just little things like that that we show like the power of like those small improvements, what they can do, right? And then how those improvements stack up like over the course of a year. Like, well, you used to have to just take this many steps. Now you have to take this many steps. And when you measure those steps over a course of a year, it's miles of walking, right? That you eliminate. So it's little things like that that we do with continuous improvement to, you know, just improve the way that work is done, whether that work is, you know, in a factory, which is sort of the traditional, the origins, if you will. But nowadays, you know, nurses are practicing it in a hospital. How can they better care for patients? How can they better, you know, serve their patients, right? So we don't have to wait as a patient and there's no mistakes done, you know, that sort of thing, kind of important, right? In a hospital. And so, yeah, this continuous improvement framework of Lean and Six Sigma, those are the two that we really focus on. They know no boundaries as far as like who it can help and who should be using it. Like everyone, if you can hear, you can use it, right? I don't care what you do. You're not different. You know, like everybody says, well, we're not Toyota. We don't get to make cars. Our job's much harder. And to which I respond, yeah, because making a car every 60 seconds, that's easy, you know, right?
Yes.
But that, you know, so that's sort of in a nutshell what it's all about.
Okay, so to get there, now operations, engineering, supply chain, what was your journey getting to?
Yeah, so after school, college, I started working for Motorola up in Chicago. And so we were building cell phones, you know, back then. Motorola was really big for cell phones back then. And you remember the StarTAC, that very first flip phone? So yeah, I saw those very first phones ever being made. And I was in the new product introduction area. I remember me and my buddies kind of snuck in. We probably shouldn't have been in there. And they had all these cages and these things were all locked up. And we're looking at them. Oh, these things look like. And so, yeah, so I built a lot of cell phones over the years. And as a young engineer, I never actually, so Six Sigma was born at Motorola, okay? They needed it to improve their quality. I never went through any formal training for Six Sigma at Motorola, which is interesting because that's where it was invented. But as a young engineer, that's just how we did our jobs. I didn't know any better because it was my first job out of school. And I just thought every engineer must work like this. But I was very lucky that, you know, that was my first real job. And so I learned a lot there. And then I went to work for Nokia, the other cell phone company. I just went where cell phone makers went to die or something. I don't know. But back in the day, you know, Motorola was booming. And then they made a strategic mistake, you know, with the whole digital analog thing. And Nokia did it right and went digital. And so Nokia took off. And so they're here in Texas, which is what brought my wife and I here to Texas. And so I came here to work at Nokia, and that's where I actually went through more formal training. Even though I knew a lot of it already from my experience at Motorola, I just had never formally went through all the training.
Right.
So I went through the green belt, black belt, master black belt, started learning about lean. And we were mostly a Six Sigma organization at the time, and a little lean dabbled in, you know, how they do that. We dabbled in lean, but I knew there was more. So I was searching the interwebs and all the rest of it. And I stumbled across this company, or this guy who was writing all these articles. I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty smart guy. Like it was a blog, but back then blogs didn't really exist, right? He was just writing articles. And he had this consulting company called Gemba Research. And I was like, who is these people? You know, and so we hired them. Noki hired them to come in and teach us some lean. So value stream mapping, you know, was all the rage. Learning to See had just been written around that time. And so this consulting company came in to teach us. And then this young guy named John Miller, who's now one of my business partners, he came rolling in. I'm like, who is this guy? And he's about my age, but he looks younger than me and always has and currently still does. But I was like, who is this young guy over here running this company? But so they taught us lean, and then I became friends with John. And John Miller's background is he was actually raised in Japan. His parents were missionaries actually in Japan. And so he grew up in Japanese schools. He's an American guy, but so he speaks Japanese fluently. Wow. And when I say fluently, I mean like you close your eyes and you hear him speaking Japanese, it's Japanese, man. Let me tell you. It's not like an American learning. Like he speaks Japanese. And so he actually learned lean when he was, I think, around 21 years old. He had just gotten out of college. And so these original lean consultants from Japan, Shinjuitsu was, you know, you may have heard of them. These guys came over, but they didn't speak any English. And so John and his buddy Brad also grew up in Japan with John, they started translating for these guys. And so they traveled all over America with these guys translating. And so they're running Kaizen events and whatever it was that they were doing. And so John and Brad said, eventually they're like, we can do this, you know? And so they went back to the Seattle, Washington area, and they started Gemba Research. Okay, so that's sort of where, and then John and I became good friends, and we decided to start Gemba Academy. There's more to that than that. I was actually looking for training because I was always traveling. When I was at that time, I was working at a company called FlowServe here, based in Irving, Texas. But I was always on an airplane, and I had a young family and all the rest of it, and it was no good, right? And so I was like looking for videos, and there were some. There's like what I call voiceover cartoon, and some of them are still around. You know, I can't do voiceover cartoon. I'm like, I want someone talking into the camera, and so I don't have to do it, and it just didn't exist. And so we just had the idea to try it. And I was like, well, I don't know how to make videos, and John's like, I don't know how to make videos. Well, one thing led to another. We figured out how to make videos. And they weren't pretty by any means, you know, but we did it. And that's how we started the company in March of 2009. We turned on with 12 videos on value stream mapping.
12 videos.
That's how we started the company. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And so now, from just starting with 12 videos, what services do you offer? Does the Gemba Academy offer?
Yeah. So our primary product is our subscription-based. It's like Netflix, but we actually add value to the world. No, just kidding. Not trying to slam Netflix. I'm sure they're great, but yeah, it's a subscription-based business. So we have thousands and thousands of videos now on Lean, Six Sigma, leadership. You know, all different types of content there, and so that's our core product. But we also have, like here in this room that we're in. In fact, this week we ran a live workshop. So we do that as well. So we do in-person training where people come here, or we can send trainers to them. So we do that. And then we have a lot of virtual coaching that we do. So like all of our certification products that we sell, green belt, black belt, master black belt, we have a lean certification. When people go through that, they may do some of the learning on video, but then they're actually working with one of our coaches, meeting with them virtually every week to get real live instruction, live coaching kind of thing.
Okay. So, and that's part of my next question is if there's somebody that just doesn't know how to get started on their continuous improvement journey, what would be the first steps?
Yeah. That's a good question. Depends on who they are and what their role is. Like if they're a leader of a company or something like that, my advice to leadership type folks who are interested in getting started, or perhaps they've started but it hasn't really taken off, is to really answer the question like, why are you doing this?
Right.
Like really, like
Yeah.
why?
Yes.
Is it because your competitors are doing it and you're scared you're going to go out of business? That's fine if it is,
Right.
but seek out why and really believe it. And because it's
Right.
not easy, right? And I know you've got a lot of experience in this as well. It's not easy. It's
Right.
not get rich quick. There's going to be a lot of bumps along the way. You're going to want to quit a million times. And so if you don't have a good, solid understanding of why you're doing it, I would caution you from even starting.
Right. Yeah. I recently saw somebody had asked Mark Cuban, they had said, "Hey, I want to start a business. What should I do?"
Mm.
He said, "If you have to ask that question, you're not ready to start a
Yeah.
business, right? If you're
Yeah.
good at something, you're really good at it, then
Yeah.
you start it. But
Yeah.
if you're just, I want to start a business, but I'm not really sure what to do,
Yeah.
you're not going to survive."
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So during that journey, was there a time you said it's difficult, struggle? Did you doubt that maybe this isn't for me?
hmm You know, as it relates to Gemba Academy, I mean, being fully transparent, I had a wife and kids and all the rest of it. I didn't just quit my job.
Right.
I had a day job. And so we did a lot of Gemba Academy at night and on the weekends and all that kind of stuff. And so, I did it for about a year. I had a good job, for about a year and a half or so as we were building Gemba Academy up. And then eventually I kind of like sick of the day job and and I called up my other business partner, Kevin Meyer. I said, "Hey, I think I'm going to quit and start full time on Gemba." And he's our CFO guy. And he's like all the numbers. And the goal was to have enough money in the Gemba Academy bank, to be able to pay me for a certain amount of months, even if we didn't make any money, kind of thing. And we were close, but probably more. He probably wanted a little bit more. And I'm like, let's just go. And my poor wife, God bless her, I don't know how she did it, but she let me quit a good job and all that to start this thing. So I don't think I ever had any doubts on that. But what's interesting, as we were preparing for this, I knew you were going to kind of ask a question similar to that, and I was actually reflecting more on in my professional career before Gemba Academy. I worked at some companies where continuous improvement wasn't done great. It was done okay.
Mhm.
And there were times to where I'd be like, "Is this stuff really work? Is it working here?" And there were moments to where I would be like, start to doubt, like, should we even be doing this? Do people even care?
Right.
That sort of thing. And so for sure I had moments like that. And I think everybody that's authentically on that journey probably does. But deep in my heart, I knew from my personal experience that if you use these things correctly, they will work.
Right.
Right? They will work. Now, the only way they will stop working is if you just stop trying, right? And you give up, And so that's kind of what drove me through those, if there was any sort of dry periods and there, difficulties, I'm coaching all these people and they're not doing anything. Like, what am I doing wrong? But just kind of having that, I don't know, that why inside of my own heart that I knew that it would work if I persevered. And so I'm real big on self-discipline and building virtuous habits and trying to be magnanimous in all the things that I do in my life, and so that kind of stuff has driven me really.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because there's so many organizations today that talk about culture, what's good culture. And you mentioned earlier in your career, when you were at Motorola, you were like, it was just the way it had always been. You didn't have any formal training, but they lived it.
Yeah.
It was like that. So you didn't know any different.
Yep.
Somebody coming in could go to an organization and they're like, yeah, I don't know if this continuous improvement stuff really works.
Right.
Because it's not so embedded in the organization. They don't live that culture. It's not that good culture.
Right.
So I was glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting perspective there.
Well, and a lot of times, sadly, some people don't have top leadership commitment towards continuous improvement. And no, I won't say it's impossible to succeed in those environments, but it's clearly more difficult.
Right.
It's clearly more difficult. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, we talk about Lean Six Sigma, but for the people out there that don't have a clue,
Yeah.
what's the major difference between Lean and Six Sigma?
So Lean is modeled after what we would call the Toyota production system. And so sort of the history, wow, you could go back to King Henry IV and the Venice Arsenal and all that and flow, building ships, that sort of thing. But being real, after World War II, Japan was in a bad way, and Toyota was in a bad way. The company Toyota, they had a very high mix of different types of products they had to make. They couldn't just buzz off Model T cars or whatever. They had to make some Jeeps, then some cars, then some trucks, and they were very resource constrained, and the country was resource constrained.
Right.
And what was interesting there is that General MacArthur actually sent these what they call the Four Horsemen. These are the guys that created what we call TWI, which is what during the war, Rosie the Riveter, right, was building the war machine, and which is why the Allies won. Clearly, was Rosie, right? Like building that war machine faster than the other guys, right? And but what was cool was MacArthur then actually sent those same folks to Japan to help them rebuild, and so that's where a lot of this, what they would later call the Toyota production system, was born. And so Toyota then figured out how to be super productive. There was a lot of guys that were involved. Taiichi Ono is one of the main chief architects there of TPS, as we call it. And so it's all Lean, Toyota production system. We use those interchangeably. It's all about sort of, we typically say removing waste, and it's so much more. It's a little annoying to say Lean's about waste, Six Sigma is about variation, because that's not really accurate. But, Lean is truly about trying to figure out, timeline constriction kind of thing. Like if it takes you, you go to the DMV and you have to sit there for 4 hours, how can we get it to where you only have to sit there for 1 hour,
Right.
And, so Lean could be used for that. Six Sigma, as I mentioned earlier, was born at Motorola, and Motorola was having really bad quality problems at the time. And so this gentleman named Bill Smith, kind of as an engineer, he sort of figured out this framework. And again, Six Sigma, it wasn't anything new. There was, a lot of statistical process control. Dr. Deming and Dr. Schuhart, these guys were doing a lot of the things, and Bill Smith sort of just kind of pulled it all together and created this sort of what we would call eventually the DMAIC framework: define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So it's a nice framework to work through, problem solving. So Lean and Six Sigma and Gemba Academy's approach are maybe a slightly oversimplified, like sides on a same coin.
Right.
Opposite sides on it. I mean, they work together, right? They can and should work together. Now, you'll get some I would call Lean purists, and they kind of snub their nose at Six Sigma, and then you get the Six Sigma purists who smug their nose at Lean, and then they fight on LinkedIn on who's smarter and better, and it's good time to watch these guys. You can always tell who they are, but really, I'm a big proponent. Learn everything, and then use what you need when necessary.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know, but I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. And you kind of mentioned this earlier. I was going to talk about this, that I remember, because I've been following Gemba Academy for probably close to 10 years now.
Okay.
And I remember the video that you did, like in the kitchen with the dishwasher, and just kind of like, was that, I believe that was dealing with maybe like the 8 waste, or kind of like Lean.
Yeah, so that's the first video of our Kaizen Way course. So it's called Kaizen Overview. And again, the original video is still up, but we haven't changed that. We refresh all of our old courses. Right. We haven't touched that one yet, because I don't know
it's
if I can.
Near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, it really is. It's my little girls, and here's an Easter egg. Go back, we'll put a link to it in the show notes, and it's on YouTube. And there's a point in there where me and my daughters are kneeling at the dishwasher. And if you have the volume loud enough and you listen carefully, you'll hear my son humming the Little House on the Prairie theme song. Now, he wasn't in the shot, but he was in the background. So that's an Easter egg. Go listen to the video.
I'll have to watch it again.
Little House on the Prairie theme song. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was just a fun video to show the power of Kaizen, or change for the better, right? And just an example. Everybody can relate to emptying a dishwasher, right?
Right.
And so that's why we use that.
And I think that's important
yeah.
is when you do stuff like that, where everybody can
Right.
relate to it,
Right.
and they can, that light bulb goes off
Yeah.
and they can kind of understand it.
Yep.
So what would you say is the most important thing, kind of wrapping things up? What's the most important thing to remember when on that continuous improvement journey? Like a lesson learned that maybe you can kind of share?
Mm-hmm. There's a few things come to mind. I would, as I mentioned earlier, start with why. Make sure you know why you're doing it, right? And then communicate that to everyone involved again and again and again. And when you think people are sick of hearing about why, you're probably just at about the right level, okay? So I can't underestimate how important that is. But I would also say that done correctly, continuous improvement, whether it's Lean, Six Sigma, and there's other flavors of it. You know, TQM was sort of a precursor to even Lean. It's about people. You know, I mean, there's a lot of tools that we use in the toolbox kind of thing, but it's about people and people working together and finding a way to, you know, I'm a big believer that Lean, continuous improvement, Six Sigma, all of it, it can like heal our broken world. I really believe it.
Yeah.
You know, like we're so divided, left, right, middle, whatever, you know, it's like, but we can all agree that do we want to make it better?
Right.
It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. You want to make it better? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How about we just get the facts, collect the data, see what it says, and then work together and experiment our way forward towards something better, right? And so, I don't know. So I'm a big believer that, you know, it can and will change the world for the better if we can get everybody doing it.
Right, because everything is a process.
Everything is a process.
So you can apply those tools and methodologies to
100%.
anything.
Anything. If you got people and processes, this applies.
Right.
That's it.
So if somebody wants to jump in and take that journey, what would be the website, social media links that you would share for the Gemba Academy?
So our main website is just gembaacademy.com. So you can go there, and like the first video of all of our courses is unlocked, you know, so you don't have to have a subscription. I mean, all those videos are also pretty much on YouTube. So you can go over to YouTube and check it out. I mean, there's hours and hours of free content. This Gemba Academy is a podcast. So lots of content that we just give away, you know, to try to add value to the world. So yeah, Gemba Academy there, and we're on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. So I'll send you the link so you can put it in the show notes.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ron.
you.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thank you.